Good afternoon. Bon après-midi. I'm delighted to be back at VivaTech and to share some of the learnings we've had through the digital transformation of many of our customers. And the question is no more if we should become a digital business. The question is how do we get the job done? So this is really what I'd like us to go through today. And I'm going to start with a very obvious statement. The world we live in now runs on software. Whether it is at home, in your work environment, in a hospital, in a stadium, whether you work in financial services industry, oil and gas, manufacturing, public services, or if you're running a connected car, if you're going to use a connected surgical device, all the way to a smart coffee machine, the world runs on software. And that is a big opportunity that obviously we have ahead of us. If you think about the sheer computing power available, if you think about the way you can use that gigantic, infinite computing power to collect, to reason data at scale, if you think about the incredible number of connected devices growing from 28 billion today to 50 billion connected devices by 2023, the opportunity we have really is endless. In that context, it is all about every single business on the planet becoming a software company. Yes, I mean it. Becoming a company like Microsoft, really digitizing all their process and the core fabrics of the company to do more. Think about what's going on in the automotive industry as an example. A company like Renault right now is actually delivering digital cars as we talk. What is that? Well, actually, the cars going to the roads now are being operated on our Azure cloud. And it means that automotive companies are no more just building and selling cars, they're actually building and selling digital services. And increasingly, that's the name of the game for a lot of more companies in the world. And the question in that context is, you cannot stay still. You cannot, and you got to disrupt, or you're going to be disrupted. And you're going to be disrupted either by some established competitors in your industry going faster, or you might be disrupted by some of the new digital entrants born in the cloud going into the business. An example, in the retail industry, ASOS. I'm sure that you probably have heard of ASOS, this UK-based company, which has become one of the very leading online fashion retailers business on the planet. And how did they do that? Well, they decided a few years back to build end-to-end a platform enabling them to go much faster. So they are able today to add more than 5,000 products on the e-commerce platform every few weeks on a base of 85,000. And they can really personalize the product or service to each one of their 15 million consumers every millisecond. That's one example among many of those businesses driving fast to become a digital organization. But when you think about digital transformation, don't be confused. This is not just about tech. Tech is just a starting point. It is a massive left-to-right transformation of your business, of your company. What I'd like to do is really share with you the journey we have with many large enterprise customers on the planet as they do and drive that journey. It's about 5 core dimensions of the business. It's about redefining very obviously your mission, your purpose. It's about also driving your cultural transformation as a company. It is about building an innovation strategy and a very rich roadmap of new services. It is about evolving your operating your business models at the core of your business. And last but not least, it's about the talents and the skills strategy you got to have. So that's the change management. It's going to take a lot of leadership from the top to the bottom of the organization to make it happen. So let me go through each one of those blocks pretty quickly. The first one is a mission. You can say the mission is a few words, and indeed, but those words are actually pretty important. This is the purpose of the company. This is your raison d'être. This is actually the statement with which you should ask yourself the questions: what would happen if my company was to disappear? What would the world miss? And if you cannot answer that question with your mission statement, probably you've got to do some more work about it. The mission is going to be your North Star. In the case of Microsoft, we had 2 missions in the past 45 years plus. And we moved from a mission from our founder, who was to bring a computer in every home and actually on every desk, to a mission today which is about empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And you could say again, oh, this is high-level philosophy. But I can tell you, if you walk the talk of embracing that philosophy in your day-to-day life with each one of your employees, if you reflect that with your suppliers, with your customers, it becomes really the North Star of your transformation. But you've got to go beyond that. You've got to transform the culture. Because the reality is there is no digital transformation without a cultural transformation. What do I mean by that? I mean you need to define the new attributes of the way you want to work as a company. Do you want to be customer obsessed? You want your people to embrace a growth mindset, to learn it all the time? Do you want to create a very collaborative, spirit-connected tissue with all of your people? How do you want to stand up as a company? How do you want to work every single day? And to give you an example, of course, of that, I'd love to refer to a big retailer, Marks & Spencer, an old lady, which was founded in 1886. And Marks & Spencer, redefining as well its way on, has decided to embrace our collaboration platform, Microsoft 365, and in particular, driving the change with Teams. Teams is our Office 365 hub for collaboration, for workflows, business innovation, but also for meetings, video conferencing, and chat all together. And with that, Marks & Spencer has completely changed a very, very hierarchical organization coming from the top to the associates, and now they can enable dozens of thousands of their people in the retail store by having this very viral communication through Teams to change the way they work as a company. So that is a big driver of the change. The third one is all about tech and innovation. We've been coming up with a view that is critical for any company, which is the tech intensity. Tech intensity is a simple concept with 2 factors. The first one, you've got to take on board the best of the shelf, the most innovative tech innovation from Microsoft, from other cloud companies. But guess what? This is not enough. This is not enough to adopt technology. What you need to do is to build unique digital capabilities on top of that tech stack. This is all about building unique IP, unique AI algorithms on that back-end cloud and AI platform to truly drive a competitive advantage in your business and to really put you on the map of innovation with your competition. And as you do that, you got to embrace some of the key building blocks, of course, of innovation. And there's many shiny objects when you go to VivaTech, actually, and go just across the booth. It could be blockchain, quantum computing, mixed reality, and of course, AI. Actually, AI is by far the single biggest commercial economic opportunity right now in the world. If you believe some of the numbers shared by PwC recently, it says that actually by 2030, the AI economy infused everywhere across the industry will generate an additional $16 trillion of GDP. That is, combining the economies of India and China together, adding that through AI. That's what we are talking about. And AI is obviously a few things. It is about the cloud, the data, but also the algorithms and the models. As you put all of that together, and you drive that tech intensity, then you need to actually reflect on your organization, operational, and business model. What it is, it's actually looking at the top on the key business outcomes you want to drive, defining the KPIs of success. I'm talking about business outcomes and digital outcomes together. It's about also defining the governance you want for innovation adoption and driving that usage at massive scales, massive speed as well. And then, obviously, it's about blending that with the right set of capabilities. That's what you got to do with all of your digital tech intensity. And then you need to probably work on the most important piece of your transformation, your talents, your skills, the people fabrics of your company as a digital business. And there's a number of ways to think about that. You can think about, number one, about the way you have to reshape all the talents in your organization. New skills, blend that with digital. You've got to think about attracting new talents as well from the outside. And you've got as well to drive the change management. But there's certainly a lesson we've learned with many clients as they build that digital capability at the core of their business, whatever is the organization, Starbucks, Renault, BMW, any large organization, Walgreens. What they have to do is build 4 types of roles capabilities: customer success, data scientists for AI, UX designer for UX experiences, and software developers. And you've got to build those capabilities across each line of business in your company. It's not just one IT team. It is not just a CDO and digital thing. It's about infusing this capability across the entire enterprise. And in order to achieve that, you need to work on a skills ecosystem. You need to work with partners. And as a company, we are definitely building a lot of partnership. Actually, last week at Build, our biggest developers conference, we are talking about a French partner, Talentsoft, which is a French company that develops some very innovative talents and human capital platform, leveraging the Microsoft Graph and AI to truly enable Christian Dior to select their talents. But it's going to take more than Talentsoft to achieve, again, those skills capabilities. And so I'm also very excited to talk about the partnership we are announcing today. This is a pretty big partnership we've formed with a great company, General Assembly. General Assembly is one of those leading education companies in the world that is working on big problems, a big opportunity to close the skills gaps for people and for companies. And with General Assembly, we are on our way to retrain, reskill 15,000 people in AI across the broad economy over the next few years. So it is my pleasure now to actually welcome on stage Jake Schwartz, CEO of General Assembly. Please welcome Jake on stage. Welcome, Jake. Please take a seat, Jake. So tell me about General Assembly, Jake, the company you built, which is also now part of the Adecco Group, by the way, one of the largest staffing companies on the planet. Where did this idea come from, General Assembly? What's the concept?
Well, when we started General Assembly, the core idea was that the process of transitioning from education to employment was completely broken. And that as skills were changing, we saw a tremendous amount of opacity, a lack of clarity from both people trying to get into new fields of technology, as well as all of the companies trying to hire people to actually fuel these digital transformations. And so we basically built a new type of school from scratch. And in the process, I think, launched an entire revolution of skills training around the world with this idea of not just a coding boot camp, but of new ways of thinking about upskilling and reskilling employees so that everyone can participate in this future together.
So a very inclusive view of, in a way, of the societal needs when it comes to skills.
You can look at it as inclusive, but I also think it's a economic necessity to actually accomplish what everyone wants to accomplish. There are not enough software developers or data scientists to actually do the work that companies need to do to compete. And that creates an economic opportunity, but also requirement that we bring everyone along. It's not optional, it's not for the good of our hearts, it's actually to make sure that everyone can succeed and make money.
Yeah, so Jack, I was talking about many examples across so many industries, retail, financial services, manufacturing, of digital transformation. What does it mean, actually, in the way you engage with all those very diverse industries to build their kind of skills, plans, strategies?
Well, we take a somewhat unique approach in that we don't believe reskilling or skill upskilling or even really education is about content or knowledge alone. It's about driving a transformation in an individual and how they interact with their either existing or future organization. And in that process, there's a lot of steps along the way. But the number one thing is outcomes and results for the students. That means when we work with a company, we spend more time worrying about who goes into a reskilling program, how do they succeed, and most importantly, what do they do when they get on the other side of this? And so this is why I'm so excited about our partnership, is that in many ways your clients, Microsoft's clients,
yes,
which are really the world's clients at the end of the day, are embarking on these massive digital transformations. And as you've said, and it is very clear, at the end of the day, people will drive that. And the flip side is people will block that if you don't bring them along. And so the job here is to create new talent that is not poached from another industry, because there is no other industry to poach from, but instead build, instead of buy that talent in a way that's sustainable and good for the individuals, for the companies, and for society at large.
So tell us more about that, Jay, because as I sit down with CEOs of companies or HR officers as well, the big question is, we are all fighting after the same talents. Those data scientists, those software engineers, and it's just a huge inflation of poaching people.
Yes.
How do you go after, I would say, unusual profiles maybe of talents or unused capacity of talents out there to actually build those 15,000, many more talents that all those companies need to succeed at scale?
Well, first off, we believe a lot more people than today are working in these fields can work in those fields. And the reason they're not currently in those fields is typically because their life path either didn't involve the opportunity to start on a journey of learning about technology, learning about the joys of software development or data, or they come from a previous era where they were working in a different part of technology. And so we believe that there's a tremendous amount of surplus capacity among people from non-traditional backgrounds who, with a very small amount of last mile training, can participate and meaningfully participate in a way that does not inflate the overall human capital market, as well as many, many, many individuals inside existing organizations.
Yep.
That can easily be retrofitted, right? Reskilled and redeployed in a way that's more engaging for the company, but also, and I think most importantly, more engaging for themselves, right? Nobody goes to a job every day and doesn't want any change at all. That is an illusion, right? What they want is to be participants in the journey and the victories of their employer. And so what we see with all of our clients that we work with around the world, some of the largest companies, about a third of the Fortune 500, is that when we are able to give people these opportunities to be reskilled and upskilled, they stay longer at their company, they're more likely to be promoted, and they become advocates for the transformation that the CEO is always talking about.
So one of the big attributes I've noticed in a number of companies transforming themselves, and I kind of alluded to that, is the learning appetite. You know, we call that a growth mindset because
Yes.
there's a lot that's been obviously written on that. How do you define, again, that attribute of learning, that learning appetite and capacity, both at the individual level, but also at the organizational level?
Well, first off, is that what I would say is that I believe most people have a learning appetite. And if they don't, it's because it's been sort of removed from them over the years. And so, but that being said, I think you bring up the right point, which is that when we look for candidates for our programs, in all of our data, we've been doing this for 10 years. We have 70,000 alumni of our consumer programs, another 70,000 from enterprise programs. The single best predictor of success is not existing ability. It's not capability. It's actually their motivation and desire for change. And if you can unlock that motivation, which I believe most people intrinsically have, you can unlock a huge amount of latent talent. Yeah.
So if I may, very last fast question, fast response.
Sure.
What would be your advice to the attendees in the room as individuals, maybe as business decision makers of large enterprise, on what they got to do about it?
Well, I think first understand that there is something to do about it. And I think my number one piece of advice is understand that when you talk about human capital, that word capital is as important as human. And so if you're not looking at it as an investment and return and quantifying those things and then deploying real resources to upgrade and maintain that capital, you are going to fall behind.
Thank you so much, Jack. Please give a big hand to Jack. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I talked about this 5 dimensions of digital transformation, but before I wrap up, I need to talk about a very big, important responsibility we all have as we become digital businesses. Because with big power, as Voltaire said, actually, a French philosopher, comes big responsibility. And that big responsibility is about embracing some core key principles. And at Microsoft, not only we believe, but we also invest, we innovate, we design our technology with 3 core principles: cybersecurity, privacy, and AI ethics. And those are critical principles to adopt and apply in your digital enterprise. The last but very important question to ask yourself as well, whatever your business is about, whatever the mission of your company is about, is how do you contribute to the broader society? And that's something as a company we've been reflecting on a lot for many years. And we have decided as well to really apply a lot of our innovation to drive AI for good. I know in VivaTech there's a lot of tech for good. Well, we are trying to bring our share of that. We're actually investing $150 million as a company on 3 main causes: AI for Earth, which is all about sustainability, AI for accessibility, and AI for humanitarian efforts to help refugees, but also assist during some crisis happening somewhere in the world. So that's really, I think, the responsible leadership that is needed from all digital businesses. Now, as I wrap it up, I'd like to bring together those 5 pieces and really reflect again on what it's going to take to transform the business. And I'm going to use a kind of a weird picture, and I'm going to ask you the question you're ready to disrupt. In a way, it reminds of me 2 years ago. Yeah, I know I've got a different haircut, but 2 years ago, as the head of the global sales marketing operation at Microsoft, I embarked 40,000 people in our company in our largest sales transformation ever, evolving from a software company to a cloud-first, AI-first company. And I can tell you, it's a massive change. It's a massive change. It was almost like not falling, but flying from the cliff to reinvent ourselves. And so to me, as I wrap it up, I want to really ensure you that as a company, as a platform company, trusted platform company, we are deeply committed to support you, to transform you all along the way. And with that, please go and disrupt. Thank you.